no place like home. Oh, as I was working on my talk, it allowed me to reflect on my physical home that I have right now. And it's very apropos for me because as I've gotten older, my physical house has become an extraordinary place where I love to spend time. I love entertaining and living in this physical space. And much to Robert's dismay, I've spent years turning it into a sanctuary of life with his help and his muscle and his participation, both within the walls and outside the walls, with vegetation and, as some of you know, several colonies of bees. Brass rods are buried along the property lines to draw the earth's natural energy towards the house. Every plant in the ground represents my love of the earth and being able to feed us now, and also being able to provide for future generations, which coincidentally enough will be here in just a few weeks. My first grandchild is on its way, so we're super excited. And we're talking this month about the hero's journey and the return home. When we hear the words, "there is no place like home," we think of a physical space, like the one I described above, when it is actually a metaphorical space. We begin at the place of our origin, where we are born and sheltered. We take on the things and the surroundings that people give us, our thoughts, our beliefs, and values as children. We leave and try to find our own version of what is taught and shown. And we experience all kinds of lessons and adversaries and teachers and experiences. And then we return home a triumphant warrior to be celebrated by all those that we left behind. It's in that arc of every story with different players and details. If you think for a minute, if you can see that happening in your own life at various points. The search begins in our years as we count the days early on when we can leave home as teenagers. And hopefully at that point we have some semblance of knowledge before we venture out, but most likely not of the real world, even if we thought we knew it all. Those teenagers, thought we knew everything as teenagers. I know now that there was no way that I could have experienced all the things I have had I stayed in Denver, Colorado. And it was pretty scary leaving for boot camp, in that moment of that decision that was made. I needed to go out and experience all the things that have made me today. And it is only because of this teaching and my journey into the 12 steps of recovery that I have been able to have this perspective now of that journey to the center of my being. If I had stayed in that same place, in that same environment, there is no way that this could have happened. The constant question of who I am, why am I here? Have you ever noticed when we get presented with the same questions over and over until we answer them differently? And these answers come in different forms over time as our own unique incarnation of God. How reassuring is that? Or how terrifying? What kind of pressure is that? To realize that we are our own unique incarnation of God. As Ernest Holmes reminds us in The Reader of Practical Wisdom that Dr. Reverend Elizabeth read for us at the beginning, says, we are precisely that. Course in Miracles says that we have only one job. And when you get a minute, look up lesson 61 when we leave here this afternoon, because it is absolutely my favorite. You know, the searching that we do from the moment we can begin to question who we are and why we are here eventually leads to that same answer. Some of us take a lot longer to get it, and that's okay. Mickey Singer references to the 3 trillion things that must happen before each moment appears to us all the time. And that it is this realization that should leave us in awe of the power of the universe and all of its glory. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, we will find that the peace we seek comes from within. While we continue to try and fill that God-sized hole with stuff, cars and relationships and food, sex, booze, drugs, until there is a bottom somewhere that is reached that makes us pause and ask, where did I go wrong? Why am I still so unhappy? Why do I still feel so lost? Hopefully, this happens without enormous consequences or ramifications. But even if it does, these moments turn into opportunities for teaching and remembering, hopefully. Some of the most profound moments, painful moments in my life, once I had grieved them and moved through them, taught me the most about who I am. And as we each continue our own hero's journey from home, out and back again, we get to decide how we answer those opportunities. Will we dig into the tools Ernest Holmes has given us, or will we keep doing it our way? Either way is acceptable, because the law doesn't care. The law is the underlying energy that is all things. It just is. It just responds. And notice I said earlier that we must move through the challenging stuff, not around. Around equals a spiritual bypass, which we have all heard of and we've all done. Through equals growth and awakening. We may have the religion of our parents that says we must be a certain way, we must live a particular life, and some of us were taught that we would be rewarded or punished by a deity up in the sky who is judging us at some point in the future, or some version of that story. New thought students often come to the teaching after some spiritual realization that their God or their higher power is not a punishing, judgmental God, but an all-loving, all-knowing energy. Luckily, my parents found Science of Mind and began their journey to becoming religious scientists when I was in middle school, which teaches just that. The seeds of knowing that God and I are one were sown early on. And still needing to do my own thing, the power of positive thinking, and I have the power to how I respond to my situations, were always in the back of my mind. I would say for the past 15 years or so, as I returned home to religious science and Ernest Holmes, that this path has sent me diving deeper into who and what I am. And realizing that pushing is unsustainable, as Tony Robbins says, one of my favorite lines that he says. You know, I couple this with many years as a Course in Miracles student, a CSL practitioner training, and almost 6 years of sobriety. And now ministerial school. And I'm filled with more questions than answers. Have you ever experienced that in your own awakening. We ask why. And the magnitude of that question keeps getting bigger and bigger. Which of the states do you find yourself in today? At the beginning of something new? Starting to seek adventure? Finding teachers and being tested? Or finding your way back to yourself after facing your greatest fear? Feeling healed and whole. Ernest also talks about the outward search to find the truth and presence that lies at the center of our being. What does all that mean? Do you mean to tell me that the answer was within me the whole time? That all these years I looked outside myself for the answers were wasted? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There was a time when I couldn't trust myself in some of the decisions I was making, even with this teaching inside my heart, but not being actively practiced or studied. To tell me the answer was within seemed ludicrous. I could hear the words intellectually, but could not yet take them on as part of my being. As I considered this thought for my talk today, it's no wonder that this relationship is so easy to give to something outside of myself. Inside of me is way too scary to look at. I'm going to focus on something outside of me to make me feel better. When what I needed reminding that I use an image to center my thoughts when I'm in meditation. When I'm in those moments of connection, I refer to the upward spiral of understanding that I have spoken about previously. Mickey Singer gets away with talking about the same thoughts all the time. I figured the repetitiveness of the basics is an excellent place to begin for me. And it seems to have worked out for him. Yeah. At the base of this spiral, it's closed and small, but it's grounded nonetheless. A spiral that isn't grounded somewhere at the bottom cannot expand. Grounded, be it Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, whatever speaks to you, as long as it starts with love. As religious scientists, we believe that all paths lead to God. I love being able to pick the bits and pieces out that speak to me and leave the rest, no matter what it is. And within this spiral, we start our journey of awakening. We are reading, watching, and experiencing, saying, this resonates with me, but this does not. And I can leave it behind. As we sort the thousands of books and teachers and words coming into our purview, we are no longer handed the things that no longer serve us. We don't hang on to those things. We get to let them go. And we make room for God to flood in at that point, knowing that nature abhors a vacuum. We're moving up to the next level, forever opening and moving upward. Along the way, we seek and meet like-minded people and places. We finally start feeling like we're home, where people get us. And when you start talking to these people, the conversation is already at 10,000 feet. There's no convincing, there's no justifying. We feel open at the top for the first time in our lives. This is why it is no coincidence that being open at the top is one of our mission statements at the Centers for Spiritual Living. You can say what you feel deep inside and not be judged for not being like everyone else. We feel a weight being lifted because we finally get it. We can stop fighting. We can hold space for those struggling with a different question. because we're always each on a different question, a different space of this hero's journey. We nod in understanding, knowing that there's nothing to fix. There is only space to be held. And from the Holmes reader that we read earlier, the reminder of the recognition of God's presence within is the realization that unconditional love, wholeness, and oneness is our spiritual home, which we can access anywhere, anytime. Wow. How amazing is that? You know, the person who returns home is not the same person who left. Thank goodness. The hero has new insight and understanding, transforming them from innocent child to mature, self-actualized adult who uses their gifts to serve a more significant cause. I encourage you this week to seek and find and understand what is your more significant cause. That greater cause could be humanity, life, nature, anything. The hero comes into full spiritual maturity by rising above themselves to do the work of the higher self. The hero's journey is potentially everyone's journey. At the end of Wizard of Oz, Glinda tells Dorothy she always had the power to return home. Like Dorothy, we must leave our safe surroundings and find and become all we are meant to be. The journey then reminds us that home, that place where we are known and loved, whole and free, is the best place to be. And we already have everything we need to get there. Thank you.